July the 29th, 2019. As you're looking at the Wide Atlantic View satellite from the National Hurricane Center. Now, last night in the video, they started watching the storm that we've been watching for over a week now as it came across the islands here. Now, what has happened is just like in the report last night, they said it was going to go through a couple of days of wind shear and things that were not conducive for development. But then as it got closer to Florida, that would possibly change and things would become more conducive. But anyway, I watched it kind of the top of it get blown away by the wind shear, and I'll point this out here. Here's the area, and here's Haiti, and the center of circulation is below this. But this wind shear that's coming this way, guys, has been tearing the top of it. Plus, the top section of the storm has been trying to deal with the island itself. So as it has done this, and it's starting to kind of regroup now, but through the day it was really getting torn apart, and they've dropped this to a 10% development over the next 48 hours. But then they say, again, once it gets closer to Florida, then that will change. Now, the other thing that I was watching today, and we've been mentioning it for the last 2 or 3 days in videos, is this large storm here. And now they are starting to watch it. It's been rotating all day, and you notice that it is trying to pull in some of this Saharan dust layer. You can see it in this image here coming off the continent. But this area now has a 20% chance of development, and it's moving straight out into the Atlantic. This system we're going to look at it is still, we'll look at the different models, and it's kind of going in this direction basically, guys. A couple make it move a little further south. Some have it turning a little further north sooner. But we'll take a look at those models. But again, here you can see in this image, it's a large area of circulation. And if it can make it through this, again, Saharan dust layer, then we may have a large storm here. Now, I don't think they would have gone ahead and named it. We've been watching it for, like I said, a few days, but they went ahead and started watching it and putting up some advisories on it. And let's look at that. Now, this is the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida. Front storm here that we started watching last night is down to a 10% chance. It's saying shower activity associated with a tropical wave over the eastern Caribbean Sea remains disorganized. This system is expected to move northwestward with no significant development, producing locally heavy rainfall over Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and portions of the southeastern Bahamas during the next few days. Over the weekend, conditions could become a little more conducive for development when the disturbance moves near Florida and the central and northwestern Bahamas. Again, in the next 48 hours, 0% chance of development until it gets through this wind shear. But over the longer term, over the 5 days, back up to a 10%. And if it maintains that surface level rotation, which it has, that's south of Haiti, then this thing will more than likely strengthen at least into a tropical depression, possibly a tropical storm. We'll have to watch it. They're saying that, again, near the weekend is when it will be getting closer to land. Now, notice at the top it says disturbances 1 and 2, and number 2 is the big system that we watched move off the African continent. As of 8 p.m. Eastern, it says 20% chance of cyclone formation in 5 days. A tropical wave accompanied by a broad low-pressure system is producing a large area of cloudiness and disorganized shower activity over the far eastern tropical Atlantic, a few hundred miles southeast of Cabo Verde. Upper-level winds are expected to be unfavorable for any significant development of this disturbance during the next few days. However, environmental conditions are forecast to become a little more conducive for development over the weekend. So we have one storm that will be right on top of Florida or somewhere in this area if it hangs together. And at that time, we'll know more about this storm strengthening. But we'll watch it between now and then. And I want to look at a couple of models. Now, again, just south of the islands, these models have not quite been updated because the rotation is slightly a little further north. but these are the latest, and you can see it's kind of a wide range. One has it moving kind of almost north, and then the models kind of come together in the center. You've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are bringing it off into this direction. You've got 2 that bring it across Cuba, and one that brings it into the Gulf of Mexico. The other one stops here. One that moves it straight west. But you can see this area is kind of what's going to be, they're going to be watching right there. Now this is the ECM weather, and it's really the European Center for Medium Range Weather Forecasting. And you can see the second storm watching right here remains very strong. But what's happening in this model, which is a long-range model, and we know these will change, is the disturbance number 1 comes across Florida, moves up the east coast and out. Disturbance number 2 that we're watching now, the large one, comes in here, looks very large and very strong, comes through, catches the bottom of that same front, very strong again at this point, and is pulled into the back into the Atlantic, skating the east coast. Now let's watch this again. Here's your first storm coming in, tip of Florida, moves out. Second storm comes in and gets caught up right there. See it? Now, again, we know these models will change over the long term. The key thing to me is the strength of this storm, the second one that they're watching now. The reason for that is if it maintains its strength, and if these models change even the slightest, which they will do by the hour, then we'll have to watch it here on the East Coast. Again, that's the European models. Now, switching satellite images, you can see it's going from daylight to dark also here. And guys, you can see if you look very closely, right there below Haiti, the center of circulation for disturbance number 1. And also the clouds being stripped north of the islands and eastward due to the wind shear moving that direction. But right there, if you watch it, you can see that. Also, here is the storm now that's a 20% chance of development in the next 5 days. And if we speed this up just a hair, guys, you can kind of see the energy involved here. It's a large area of circulation already. And if you compare that to the size of the Gulf of Mexico, you can see what I'm talking about. And also, here's your center of circulation there. And the close-up at the Caribbean satellite, guys. Here is your center of location and disturbance number 1. And you can see the wind shear has torn the top of the storm off from yesterday and moving it northeast. The storm is projected to move basically into the northwest in this area. There's some variations you saw on the model, some a little further to the north and some kind of a little further south there. But in this center of circulation that you see here, if that maintains that low-level energy and the low pressure itself, once it clears these islands and starts getting into the warmer water, that's what they are talking about. It still has a couple hurdles to leap, but we're going to be watching it, guys, and you watch it. And with this video and the video that we put up earlier about the forest fires moving around the Arctic Circle and the effect of that smoke being the same as volcanic ash moving around the planet, and with winter coming on, we don't know what will happen. But we got to get through the summer first. We're nowhere near the peak of hurricane season, a little over 6 weeks out, and then it's going to go downhill till November. So be prepared in Florida and any of the islands, any of these areas you see these storms coming through. Be prepared. Have some extra food and water. And by the way, guys, really appreciate your support on our website. And when you are doing that, when you're buying the water filters and the survival food, you're making the best investment you can ever make for your family. This is a heads up, guys. We're watching this. We'll continue to. Be safe.